All right, guys, so here's what we're talking about today. So we're going to be talking about the 5 must-do steps to actually protecting your phone number reputation. I don't know if you guys have been following along or not with what's going on, but you may have been noticing that your calls might be blocked, your text messages might be blocked, you might be popping up as spam. If you have not noticed that, maybe you're a step ahead of the game, but the vast majority of businesses owners that I've talked to, they're having issues with all of this stuff. And guys, it's going to get even worse because there are deadlines. So if you haven't stopped back and watched my other videos that kind of explains what's going on, you make sure to watch that as soon as possible. These are the 5 must-do steps, and you're going to get everything you need from this video. But all of this will make more sense if you go back and watch that video, okay? But these are the 5 things that you have to do these steps, okay? So what I'm going to do is we're going to just like hop right in. So whether you know it or not, you actually have what's called a phone reputation, okay? And the phone reputation is now being altered or scored, or whatever you want to call it, right? There are 5 things that are kind of working against you guys, or if you stay on this, it'll put you ahead of the game, right? So we're going to jump over these 5 steps, okay? So the first thing that I want to explain is some of these things have actually been put into place by the FCC, the FTC, and the phone carriers, okay? So these are the guys that are putting this in place. Let me see if I can squeeze that on there. Okay, so these are the guys that are kind of putting these things, these processes, these laws in place. The big law that you're going to be hearing a lot about is the TCPA, okay? Not talking about that in this video. I'll break that down in another video. But this is the reason why these things exist right now, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and jump in with step number 1, okay? The first thing that you need to do is going to be called registering your CNAM or your CNAME, however you want to pronounce it, all right? CNAM. Okay, so pretty much what that means is that has to do with your caller ID, okay? Now, you say, oh, I already have a caller ID. Well, most of the times what you're going to want to do with this is go to your service provider, okay? So this is where you go to your phone service provider, okay? Your phone service provider. Usually when you go to them, you want to say, hey, I want to register for my CNAME, okay? Most of these guys, whether you're voice over IP, T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever it is, the first thing you want to do is register with them, okay? The next thing you want to do is when you register, most of these things are going to have a business profile. All right. So they're going to want you to create a business profile. And inside of that profile, some of the things you want to make sure that you have ready are like a business address, right? Of course, your business name. You need to have a website. If you don't have a website, you want to make sure to at least have a link to like your social media, Facebook business page, anything that can connect you to an official business. That's what they're going to look for, okay? They're going to also look for things like, do you have an EIN? Or they might ask for like a tax ID. So these are all basic business things that you actually need to have to run a business anyway. If you've been running as a sole proprietor, make sure that you still have some of these things in place because it might be a little bit harder for you to register. But if you have these things kind of done in advance, you'll need your official business name, right? So you'll need your official business name. Now you'll need an email address. Okay, so each one of these registries are going to be different based off of your actual phone service provider. But most likely they're going to have a web form or something that you guys can actually fill out there, okay? So you're probably going to have to create that profile with your phone service provider, okay? Also, that's what's connected to your CNAM or your CNAME, guys, is you want to actually also, so now that you've verified that here, you also want to go to each of the large carriers. Oops, that's an R. All right, so each of the large carriers. Okay, so that's going to include, let me not do purple. Purple's my color. All right, so that's going to include AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Okay. So each one of these guys actually has their own database, okay? So let me back up a little bit. What's happening here is when you actually do register your CNAME, you're going to register a business profile, okay, with your service provider, because your service provider has a database. But guess who else has a database? Each of these large carriers, okay? And so there is a website that you can do. It's one form that you can fill out. I believe it's called, I will put it in a video below, or I'll attach it to this video somehow, but there's one form, I believe it's free caller reputation, something like that. I will double check it. I don't have it off the top of my head, forgive me, but you fill out this form and it will register with each of these three carriers, okay? But the CNAM is one of the reasons why you might be getting marked and flagged as spam, okay? So that pretty much helps you with your spam problem, okay? So that's the thing number one that you have to register for, okay? So thing number two that you have to register for is something called stir shaken, okay? Stir shaken is what actually helps prevent caller ID spoofing, okay? Caller ID spoofing is pretty much, I don't know if you've noticed this, but one of these things that scammers have been able to do is they've been able to copy other legitimate businesses' caller ID. They've been able to copy it, and what they do is they do spam phone calls from your caller ID, right? They're stealing your caller ID potentially to make a bunch of spam calls, and guess who it falls back on? It falls back on you, right? So this was a protocol that was put in place to help. Now, I'll do individual videos about this later, but pretty much it helps, and that's called spoofing, okay? When someone steals your caller ID, that's called spoofing. So stir shaken is another type of registration, okay? It's another type of registration that helps identify and connect your phone number to your actual business. And it also gives you like a special token kind of thing, a digital token, so to speak, that helps verify. So when calls come through, they're like, hey, can I see your token? Let me make sure this is a real token and this is not a spoofed token, okay? I'm trying to simplify it for you guys, right? But that's essentially what that is. So that's what you want to do too. Now, this stir shaken, you also have to go back to your service provider, okay? So your phone service provider. All right, so if it's Twilio, if it's Lead Connector, if it's Nextiva, if it's Grasshopper, okay, these two things you have to go to them to do that for, okay, for these top ones. So this one here and this one here, okay? Step number 3 is, let me get my blue, okay? The third thing you have to look out for, and this is what everyone is worried about. These are the big deadlines, okay? A2P10DLC, okay? What this does is this helps make your text messages, registration. It's the registration, and you also have to tell them the use case, all right? So what that means, let me do this here, use case. Okay, so what this means here is that A2P means application to person, okay? Application to person. What this means is that if you are texting using a voice over IP, or if you're doing mass texting or anything like that, that's called an application. So application to person, and then TDLC means pretty much that you're using a 10-digit phone number, like a local phone number. So if you are currently using a local phone number through Twilio or through Nextiva or through Grasshopper or even through T-Mobile, if you're using a local 10-digit number and you're using it on an application to person, meaning you're sending it to multiple people, then you need to register your text messages. Like, you literally have to give them examples of your campaigns, right? So if you're using text messages for reminders, to send reminders or notifications to people, if you're sending people advertisements or promotions, you have to literally go back to your phone carriers, okay? Go to your phone provider, and they should have a process set up that you can actually submit this. This has to be done. I believe starting in August. I know one of the biggest companies, Twilio, will completely block your text messages if you don't have this in place, okay? They're already throttling back, and they're starting to charge more fees if you don't have this done. But this is something that you want to get done too. And again, most times you're going to want to go back to your provider, okay? Provider. You want to go back to your provider to do this step number 3, okay? Step number 4, or thing number 4 that you want to look at is you want to look into the DNC scrubbing. Okay, DNC scrubbing. What that means is the do not call list. Okay, the do not call list. This was pretty much put in place back in the early 90s. Not early 90s, early 2000s. And so people and consumers they can subscribe to this list at a federal level. Okay, and they say, hey, I do not want solicitation calls, right? And so if they're on this list, it is your responsibility as a business owner. It's your responsibility to make sure that you're not calling people that are on this list, okay? Or if they are on your list, it is up to you to get specific consent that says, hey, even if I'm on the do not call list, I still give you permission to call and text me, okay? So that's something that you want to do. I'll touch on that later for some details on that. But that's another thing that you want to look out for, okay? Now, this is not going to be something that's provided by your phone service provider. This is probably something that has to be done via a third party. And again, I'll do some videos on how to do this later. But there's a federal DNC list, all right? There's one at the federal level, but there's also one at the state level, okay? There's also one at the state level. And so what you want to do is make sure that, at least every 30 days, like if you can check it, it really depends on your call volume, right? And how big your business is. But if you can check these things, you want to get these things checked as frequently as you can, but at least once a month to help protect your phone number there, okay? And the last thing is probably the easiest thing, okay? The last thing that we're going to talk about is your actual call behavior, okay? Meaning, don't act like scammers. Don't be a spammer. Scammer. I think I spelled that wrong. That's okay. Hooked on Phonics didn't work for me, guys. But anyway, so your call behavior, okay? So what you want to do is, I'll do separate videos on this. But guys, all of these things are connected, and there's algorithms. And so they can track your phone calls, how long are your phone calls? How many phone calls are you doing? Are you doing a consistent number of phone calls, or are there huge spikes in the amount of phone calls that you're actually dialing out every day? Same thing for text messages. Are you calling before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. Monday through Friday? I believe it's Monday through Saturday. I had to double check that, right? But pretty much there's specific call behavior that they're actually looking at too, okay? So these are the 5 things overall that you want to be on the lookout for. So now you might say, well, where do I start, okay? Well, of course, the easiest place to start is going to be your call behavior. But these 3, 1, 2, and 3, these are time sensitive. Like, this has to get taken care of by a specific time, or else you will not be able to, like, your calls and your text messages will be blocked. Okay. And I've got screenshots of it. Maybe I'll put a screenshot on this. Guys, this is not just me saying this. Like, Twilio's put it out. All you have to do is go to your phone service carrier's website, and they probably have a notice that, hey, you guys got to get this registration done. Okay. So this is the registration that has a deadline date to it. But guess what? Most of your service providers, they're going to want you to go through at least this portion, okay, registering your CNAME and your stir shake. They're going to want you to get these two done first before you do this. Now, don't quote me on that, right? But from what I've seen, like with Twilio, you have to kind of go in this order before you can even submit your message. You have to at least create your business profile, okay? So I know this video was a lot, but the goal of this video was to let you guys know that there's actually these three, the first, number 1, number 2, and number 3, they're the most important things to get done because they have deadlines attached to it, okay? And honestly, you could already be being marked as spam and don't even know it, okay? So these are the 3 things that you want to get done first ASAP, okay? And the place that you want to start is by contacting your specific service provider and say, hey, how do I make sure I register my business for my CNAME? How do I make sure I do the stir shaking? And how do I make sure that I can register my text message campaigns for A2P10DLC? Guys, I know this has been a lot to take in, and I've gone really, really fast. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of a place to start. I know it's overwhelming. Bear with me. I'm going to get content out on this as soon as I can and in the easiest way to digest. If you want more information, you can always go to ftc.gov. You can go to dnc.com. You can Google all of these things if you like. There's information out there. The best place to go, though, is going to be to go to your phone service provider to follow their specific instructions. They may have set out a specific gateway to try to make this easier for you. If at any point you need any help, please let me know. Stay in touch. Keep abreast of these things. I'll try to bring updates to you as soon as possible. Again, be sure to like and share this video if this has been of any value to you. And I will see you guys on the next video. Thanks.